So, do you remember a few weeks ago when Nick Saban retired at Alabama and everyone pegged Dan Lanning to be the heir apparent in Tuscaloosa? Naturally, that didn't happen. Lanning is sticking around at Oregon for the long run and hopefully will bring the Ducks to dynasty level mode in the Big Ten. And Kalen DeBoer will hopefully do the same thing down in Tuscaloosa as Alabama's next head coach. But what went into the decision for Lanning not to even consider Alabama? Because he made it clear from the jump he was happy in Eugene. He recently unveiled part of the reasoning behind it on the Ryen Russillo podcast, and I thought maybe he's not telling every truth. But once you listen to the podcast and you actually hear his thoughts, you know that he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So why don't we go ahead and discuss the reasoning behind it? But if you are new here, welcome on into the channel, people. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. I get it. The season's come to an end. Best of luck to Jim Harbaugh in the NFL, and can't wait to see what Sharon Moore can do. But it's the offseason. This is my time to shine. I love talking college football, and I'm going to keep you entertained for the next several months. So if this is the daily dose of content you need to survive the dreaded offseason, recaps of 2023, a look ahead of 2024, transfer portal still running rampant, watch hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on Dan Lanning's decision to stick it around in Eugene. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, Big Ten faithful, Oregon fans, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson, Twitter, X, Instagram, all the same handle, same as my YouTube handle. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. So, Lanning recently was on the Ryen Russillo podcast with The Ringer, and he started talking about what went into the decision to not even consider Alabama. And he said, well, I never really thought it that much in my mind. I love Coach Saban, and gosh, I can't tell you enough of how much he's done for my career where I'm at. But I think we can make Oregon the best job in college football. And that happens to be where we're focusing on. I make commitment to players. People see the commitment publicly, but they don't see when you sit down on a coach with a family and tell them that you're going to be here and what that looks like. Some coaches say it, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. For me, that means something. So naturally, because of his name was such a prominent figure this past season, brought Oregon to a 12-win record, got them to a Fiesta Bowl victory. Bo Nix was a Heisman finalist. He was going to draw a lot of attention. And because of jobs are opening, especially premier jobs like Alabama and eventually Michigan, you would peg him as one of the front runners. And partially, that's just due to what we know about Oregon. What's the one thing that has been a constant carousel when it comes to Ducks? Coaching searches. You had Willie Taggart for a year. He did fine, nothing to write home about, but enough for you to say there's a building block and a foundation. Willie takes a job down in Tallahassee a year later and is now going to be Florida State's head coach. So they promote internally and they bring over Cristobal. And Cristobal builds off of what Taggart was already doing. But then Miami calls him, and sometimes you want to go home where the heart lies. And that was a pipeline job for Mario from the jump. It was very clear that if he ever got the opportunity to return to his hometown, his alma mater, he was going to take it. So naturally, he takes the job. And Lanning picks up those pieces and kind of what we really saw back in the days of Chip Kelly with the dynamic offense, a defense that was good enough to get you by. And he raised it to new heights. The offense was phenomenal this past season. The defense was sound as all hell. And this was a Frankenstein monster that could have taken on anybody. I mean, if you go back and you listen to the way people throughout the regular season talked about Oregon, they were the most consistent team in college football. It's a little shocking that they didn't make the playoff because of how well they were playing down the stretch. It felt like every game you couldn't catch them getting a break. They were not going to let up for a minute against you. And so Lanning, being a top name, is saying these things behind closed doors. There's an old saying in life that I think is really prevalent here. Don't try to be happier than happy. And what that usually means, and you hear it from your grandparents or from adults who have been in life and have actually lived hard days ahead, don't try to be better than what you already have. Sometimes great is good enough. You don't need to go for the exceptional. You don't need to go for the wow factor. You're okay with where you are right now. And for a place like Oregon, for years, it felt like it was a destination job. You know, you were waiting for the next opportunity to present itself. But now they're in the Big Ten. And that carries a little bit more weight than the Pac-12. I love the Pac-12. Many of you love the Pac-12. We're all sad to see it go away because of the rivalries, the pageantry, what it meant to be Pac-12 After Dark, the last game on television. You had freaks watching these games. They were the blue blood specialty of college football. But now it's a Big Ten job. And it's a good Big Ten job. In fact, you can make an argument it's a top 3 Big Ten job with what comes in annual revenue, the actual standing point of what comes with the football facilities, what you were able to upgrade in the athletic complex over the last several years, and the consistent growth in the recruiting trail. Everything about Oregon screams it can be a premier job. And we talk about this all the time with other coaches. What makes a premier job is not just the facilities. It's the right guy leading the charge. Once you get that person in place and they start demanding things to happen, hey, I want a new contract, because if you give me a new contract, what's going to happen is I'm going to be here for the long haul, which now allows us to upgrade our athletic complexes or our state-of-the-art nutrition center or our weight room or our workout facilities or anything that goes behind closed doors for our athletes. Any one of those things. Give me a contract and I'm here for the long run. Once that happens, it becomes an easy job. That's what makes great jobs. And Lanning, he's from Missouri. When you look at a guy like Taggart, he was from Florida. He wanted to go home to Florida. When you look at a guy like Cristobal, he was from Miami. He played at Miami. He wanted to go home to Miami. But Lanning is from Missouri. He doesn't need to go to a place like Columbia. Maybe he would if he ever lost his job in Oregon, but that would also mean Eli Drinkwitz is out of a job and a couple of other things would have to happen in the process. A place like Oregon can be great. And now with the Big Ten logo, once you get that top 3 job, it's very hard to come by. Like Sharon Moore is a perfect example of this right now. He's probably locked in if he continues to build off what he did last year as the interim coach for 10 seasons, 13 years, 15 years, however long he wants to coach. If the results pave the way and we're seeing the same type of impact made by Jim Harbaugh with Sharon Moore, where else are you going? The NFL? Alabama? That's about it. Those are the jobs that would be made available for a guy like Moore to pass up a place like Ann Arbor. And now you throw Eugene into the mix. I don't know if many people have been out to the West Coast, Best Coast, but I can tell you this much. Autzen Stadium is a cathedral for college football. It is one of the great atmospheres on the Pacific Northwest, and it's kind of hidden, tucked away in what we know about the legacy of college football. If you go on a Saturday night to a game at Autzen Stadium and you hear the roar of the crowd and what comes with everything that we know about this sport, from the second the duck rides in on the motorcycle all the way until the final whistle, the fan base is elated. It's electric. There are SEC stadiums that would kill for the type of persona that carries its weight out in the Pacific Northwest. And now that's there. And you have funding and you have backing from Nike. And now you also look at what you're able to bring in on the recruiting trail, especially a guy like Lanning, what he's done over the last few years. You feel pretty damn good about yourself. So don't be happier than happy. Being in a place like Alabama means that you will get the results, you will get the funding, you will get the major contract, and you'll be able to work alongside some of the best coaches in college football. I mean, it literally is a pipeline of just future studs that we're talking about maybe eventually being in the Hall of Fame, or at least at the forefront of their sporting industry right now. From Brian Kelly to Josh Heupel to, I'll throw Lane Kiffin in the mix. You have Kirby Smart. There are names out there that actually are very well known and respected across this industry. But will you be happier? Will you be in a better spot? Because with that extra funds and with the extra persona comes the extra personalities. And what also comes with it is the extra expectations. So you know what the goal is at Oregon. You're doing a damn good job there. And you just brought in yet another top-level recruiting class. Look at this team. They're going to be top 5 every single year because of what they have at their banking. On top of that, they've also been a great team when it comes to the transfer portal the last 2 off seasons. This year, bringing a legit number 1 receiver to replace your number 1 receiver that just went to the NFL and Evan Stewart. You get your quarterback for the future, who's basically left-handed Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel. And you get your quarterback for the long-term future in a guy in Dante Moore, who eventually was always going to find his way back to Oregon. It just took a little bit of time and a quick pit stop in Los Angeles before he realized this is where home resides. It's top 3 job in the Big Ten. It's a job that consistently is going to put you in the running for a shot at Indianapolis, and certainly in the running for a shot at the college football playoff. And what's going to be really interesting moving forward is seeing how the playoff committee goes about those teams that are on the outside looking in conference championship weekend. Who are those rosters that sit at 10-2, sit at 9-3, that maybe are a little bit more battle-tested and proven than those in the ACC and the Big 12, which eventually is going to lead to a lot of determining factors on how we view everyone in the college football playoff era, especially with 12 teams. But Lanning's got it good. He's getting a contract extension. He has a roster that will be competitive the second they touch down in the Big Ten. They also have a roster that's going to be built for the long term. They constantly are bringing in average revenues of sums in the top 15. They always have a great fan base, and he has the backing from the boosters. There's really not much more you need in Eugene. And with that Big Ten logo, that's going to carry a little bit more sums that come into your pocket. So at one point, Oregon was viewed as a destination job. Now it is viewed as a staple job. And you heard him say it on a podcast back earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. You never think that your first job may be your last job. And at the time, probably it wasn't. You look at the Pac-12 and what the enigma around it is and what the funds were going to be. Naturally, you want to get the most bang for your buck. But he also talked a little bit about being a father, having a kid who's going to start middle school next year. And he wants his son and daughter, and he wants his kids to be able to be around this company and this city and this fan base for the rest of their high school career. So now that feels like he's locked in. Family man happy in a family location at a school that's willing to pay him the sums that he has earned. All that aside, it makes sense. That's just not to say that Washington's a bad job. In fact, Kalen DeBoer, I actually believe him when he said, I would not leave a place like Washington if it was anywhere else but Alabama. And it makes sense because you think about it for a second. Washington is also going to carry that Big Ten logo, so it's going to get that Big Ten sums. You don't have to worry about your next paycheck or how much you're going to earn on an annual basis now as members of the second best conference of college football. But Lanning, with Nike, with the funding, with the boosters, with the pageantry of Autzen Stadium, with the way he's able to recruit, and with the coaching staff he's been able to establish to create their opportunities to become eventual head coaches, it feels like a job that's going to be right alongside the Alabamas, the Florida States. You could throw in probably, I would say, Michigan, and maybe if you want to, Clemson for that matter. It's not a tier 1 job just yet, in my opinion, but it's really, really close. We put Texas A&M on this pedestal that says it's a tier 1 job. If Texas A&M is a tier 1 job in your eyes, Oregon is a tier 1 job, and it absolutely is a higher tier 1 job in my opinion. But either way, Lanning seems very content at where he's at. And if you not want to be happier than happy, I completely understand it. It makes sense that he's going to be there. And what's the crazy part? I actually believe what he says. You don't think that your first job is going to be your last one. As of right now, it's very hard to imagine a guy like Lanning, what he's been able to do the last 2 seasons, and now with the future of college football leaning towards just a big 2, he's going anywhere anytime soon. And that's a blessing in disguise for every Duck fan across the country. And kind of a shot in the dark if you're a Big Ten roster. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.